For those of you struggling with painful knees or a mind that's not very peaceful, you might reflect that chanting the Dhammacakka Sutta, they say, is great merit. First teaching by the Buddha. You've just done that. So, as the retreat progresses, the number of questions increase. Not sure that's a good sign. Ajahn, some meditation masters recommend observing the body as a combination of 6 elements: earth, water, fire, air, space and consciousness. You have mentioned earlier the property of the earth is heaviness. How the properties of space and consciousness appear to the meditator. Space, when we're practicing mindfulness directed to the elements and particularly to the body, well, space in the most obvious form is the spaces in the body. Holes, nostrils, ears, spaces between organs. If you ever see an autopsy and they open up the body, there's gaps there. So we do have larger spaces in the body, and then obviously on a more refined level, just the space around every material element. They say you look at the sand of the Ganges River, all the sand there's a space around each particle. It's just we don't notice because we notice the sand, but there's space there as well. So each particle in our body, however small you go, there's a little bit of space there. So it's just correct to say there is space in the body. It's just not obvious. The important thing to see is that the mind, with delusion, takes ownership of the body, and then we get a sense of my body, and that includes my space. So, my nostrils, you're out there walking, a fly goes up your nostrils, you don't like it, do you? Get out, don't want you. My nostrils. Maybe the fly is also deluded and they're saying, my nostrils, my space, I got here. Who knows? But it's that sense of me, mine, myself, even forms around space. We say it, don't we? My space. My home is my space, so it also applies to the material world externally. And a house has spaces in it, doesn't it? You have a room, you have a floor, a ceiling, 4 walls. Even with furniture, there's still space in there. It's something we often overlook. But when you're bringing up mindfulness and more refined states of mindfulness, you might notice space, contemplate it, and contemplate this self-attachment even with space. So someone was saying the other day the most traumatic experience they ever had in their life was an intruder coming into their house. I said, what did they do? Did they hurt you or steal something? They said, no. They just snuck into the house. As soon as they saw someone there, they ran away. They didn't actually steal or harm them or anything. But it was traumatic because they had invaded their personal space, their house, where normally no strangers come. So obviously it's an unfortunate thing, but it teaches you something, doesn't it? Your mind grasps even space as my space. Whereas in fact space is an element, and the reason the Buddha had us contemplate elements is because they're just things that exist in nature. Earth, air, fire, water, even space. But then the mind grasps it, my space. And you can even fight over space. So in the modern era we have wars, and that includes fighting over air space. The other day there was that news that Russian airplane got shot down over Turkey because they said they invaded our airspace for 18 seconds. just gone over a little bit of Turkey, so they shot it down. Obviously very suspicious, afraid, so they shoot it down. But you think about it, someone's life is lost for 18 seconds of whatever, they made a bad choice or whatever. But it's just air, it's just plane going through air, my space. It's because of the attachment we put on it. Same with all the elements. We fight over earth, land, property. We fight over air. We fight over the water. A while ago there was that strange incident where I think it was the British Navy had a ship in the Persian Gulf, and then the Iranians had a ship, and they were arguing whose bit of water it was. And nobody really knew, because they're in the middle of the ocean, and they're saying, well, look, you've crossed the line, it's our territorial water. But it's very superficial, isn't it? It's just a label. We see, that's the map, that's the line, that's our water, not yours. So they almost had a fight over this bit of water, but nobody could even guarantee who is in which bit of water. They don't know. It's just water. And when we're meditating, we're going right down to these basic elements and separating off this sense of self, letting go. Consciousness is what knows, but because of ignorance and delusion, craving and attachment, consciousness becomes a cause for this sense of self-view, ownership. Sakkaya Ditthi takes hold of the Vijnana Khandha, so we see, there's the I, which is a form, and there's something you see, a shape, a colour, a whatever, so that's form, and then there's I consciousness, vijnana. What happens next is my I consciousness, I am seeing. And depending on our perceptions and attachments and karma, I like what I see, or I don't like what I see, or sometimes I'm not sure what I see. It's all kinds of options, but it's the sense of self forming with consciousness, taking control, taking ownership of it. The Arahant, the Buddha, still sees, but no sense of self, no conceit, me, mine, myself arises. They've seen through that, through their vipassana, their insight, their mindfulness practice, is just seeing. There's just knowing. Basically the vijnana dhatu is just knowing, it's awareness. And if the knowing of an arahant is completely purified of any delusion of self, there's no greed, anger, delusion, no attachment, no suffering. So you say it's pure awareness. Sometimes they call it nibbana dhatu. It's just an element, the knowing that is pure, undefiled. But when we are still unenlightened, we see, we hear, we know with the mind itself, but we take hold of that as self, and that's where all the trouble starts. So contemplation of the elements, very, very good way to develop insight into not self, break through the perceptions of self, the delusions of self, and the Buddha liked to use it, for examples of, the peaceful mind that is unshaken by worldly conditions of praise and blame and wealth and loss of wealth and all this. So the mind is just like the earth element, completely unshaken, unmoved by the pleasant and unpleasant experiences it has. The elements are very helpful for us to gain insight that way. Lumpur, ill will, sort of half Thai, half English. Ill will, may I be free from ill will, ni plewa arai. So there's a question translating the word ill will. ในภาษาไทยพยาบาท sometimes วายาบาดะ พยาบาท หงุดหงิด ความไม่พอใจไม่สบายใจหงุดหงิดขัดเคืองใจรำคาญหลายอย่าง so ill will sometimes directed to a person, sometimes just coming up because of a condition บางครั้งก็ไม่มีเหตุอะไรมากก็แค่ระลึกถึงอะไรที่ไม่ชอบก็หงุดหงิดแล้วไม่พอใจแล้วบางทีเกี่ยวกับคนอื่นบ้างบางทีเกี่ยวกับสถานที่หรือความรู้สึกเจ็บขาก็พยาบาทไม่พอใจคิดมากก็เริ่มจะโทษคนอื่นทำไมเขาให้เรานั่งนานเจ็บนั่นแหละเพราะความรู้สึกไม่เป็นมิตร hostility or unfriendly หรือเจ็บป่วย ill sick หรือหมายถึงทั้งสอง I'll just answer in Thai again ก็ hostility ก็มักจะเป็นความเกลียดเกี่ยวกับคนอื่นหรือเวรกรรมจองเวรปองร้ายเราไม่ชอบเขามาทำเราไม่เห็นด้วยความเห็นแตกต่างกันการกระทำต่างกันเขามาทำลายเราพูดไม่ดีทำไม่ดีเราก็เลยปองร้ายจองเวรกรรมก็ไม่ระงับด้วยการจองเวรระงับด้วยการแผ่เมตตาป่วยก็ไม่เชิงป่วยนะแต่ว่าบางคนก็เรียกป่วยทางใจนะใจไม่ปกติจองเวรไม่มีความสุขเหมือนที่ว่าไม่เป็นมิตรไม่มีความสุขเป็นอกุศลเป็นสิ่งที่เราควรละให้เร็วที่สุดนี่ก็พยายามละให้ได้ It's just a further description of this term ill will hostility from the chant. You can look in the chant, remind yourself of these different aspects of ill will, what we call miccha sankappa, ill will and then hatred, cruelty directed towards others, seeking revenge, dwelling on others with hatred. Bhante, is it the perception that makes a person be different from another person? Well, one part of it. Certainly we all have our different perceptions. Usually they translate sanya, kanda, aggregate of perception. So everyone will have different perceptions based on their own personal experience of pleasure and pain and what they learn and what they contact and experience through life. And you can see it, one person can, you look on them and you feel they're your friend, another person knows that same person and feels they're their enemy. Same person, they look at them, seeing the same thing, but they've had a different experience, so they remember differently. And they give different significance to things. So if it's your friend and they say something foolish, you just say, oh, never mind, excuse, never mind. But if it's your enemy, they say something foolish, you say, see, they're just a bad person. Perception is different, isn't it? It colors the way we react and the way we look at things. So obviously we are different. We're born alone, we die alone. We can never be totally kind of unified, but we can have similar experiences, similar insights. And so, like the Buddha said, there's no limit to the number of beings who can attain Nibbana, like the ocean. It can just contain any number of people can attain Nibbana, they're not limited. And when the mind attains Nibbana, well, the sense of self, we say, identification with self, sense of duality, good, bad, and all this me, you, dissolves. So, and the experience of Nibbana is the same for each being. But until that point, then there's obviously going to be a lot of differences in the way people look and think. On one level, even arahants still have differences between them. They still have characteristics based on their karma that are different. So they obviously look different, and they talk different, and they have different personalities expressed. But the mind has been purified of the delusions. They see through anicca, dukkha, anatta. So even though they have their character traits that are different, the actual insight into emptiness, into nibbana, is the same. So it has the same effect on the mind. The mind is liberated. Perception is the same for everyone in the sense, sanya kanda is, we just chanted it, it's dukkha, it's anicca, it's anatta. So the truth applies to everyone. But we often forget these truths and we focus more on, the details of our perception, and then it's my perception, your perception, sense of self forms. Ajahn, could you talk a little bit about the balance between not forcing the body too much and being vigilant? I like sleeping. Sorry. You don't have to apologize to me, you should apologize to yourself. You sleep, you never reach nibbana if you're always sleeping. And I find 4 a.m. to 6:30 a.m. meditation particularly hard. I think you have a lot of friends, everybody finds it hard. My mind struggles, yes, yep. I get fairly agitated. I have tried and tried. It messes up my rest of the day. Now, the rest of my day is messed up because of this early morning. But recently I decided to sleep in and wake up at 5:30. I found the sitting became a lot easier and my mind could go in a lot deeper when the body is rested. What's the right way? Am I just being lazy and trying to find excuses? You have to ask yourself, don't you? Are you just trying to find excuses? Well, it's true, especially if you're used to a certain sleep routine and you suddenly come to the monastery and it's different from your normal sleep routine, you probably will find it takes time to adjust. I'd say the best is actually when you go home, keep up this routine. Get used to getting up early, at least earlier than normal. If you get up at 7, then get up at 6. If you get up at 6, get up at 5. Train yourself. Everyone in the beginning finds it hard, but it's about practice. Once you practice regularly, you get to a point where you're just used to waking up, getting up. You don't need an alarm, and you find you can be comfortable. But I understand your point. When you're adjusting to a new routine, maybe sometimes you need extra sleep, and then you feel your meditation goes better. So you have to know yourself and be honest and just see what works. But be wary of, like you're saying, we make excuses. Our laziness is tricky, We make excuses. And if you keep following the way of laziness, it's very hard to bring out extra energy in the practice, and it's always there waiting to pull you down again. This is why they say it's great merit to be born as a human being, because we stand up straight. We stand up on 2 legs because we have enough merit not to be pulled down to the earth. The gravity of the earth pulls us down. And what happens when we're tired? We want to lie down. When we're sitting, it's easy to fall asleep because we're even closer to the earth. And, you see people that just want to lie down. Maybe in here you don't feel you can do it, you're too embarrassed. But you go back to your tent and just lie down. It's the gravitational pull of the earth is like that, and our mind kind of gets in the habit of that, always just clinging to the bed to the pillow, going down. So we have to remind ourselves, be mindful of our good karma that we have a body. We can sit up straight. So the Buddha said, when you sit meditation, sit up straight. Put effort in. And if you push up from the base of the spine, you get energy. And you start to go through sleepiness, and sleepiness starts to fade. As you stand up, you get energy. You walk meditation, you get energy. So we do have to work against sleepiness. But sometimes we're honest, we say, okay, I just really need a good rest. That's fair enough. But be wary of laziness. The karma is made when you wake up and then you say, oh, I can't be bothered, and you turn over. That's when you make the karma, isn't it? The sleep, we get attached to some of the comfort, and sometimes it's an escape, especially when we're suffering. You say, I just can't be bothered thinking all this stuff, facing the world, and you just blot out. That's why we like sometimes to take sleeping pills when we're stressed, get drunk when we're stressed, and just kind of blot out the world, go into this dull state. So sleep can also be a habit and an escape. The more mindfulness we practice, you learn the difference between habitual sleep that is maybe not necessary and genuine need for rest. And you learn to balance it that way through mindfulness practice. Grab Rian Pra Ajahn, xin Thai. จะต้องใช้ธรรมะอะไรในการเยียวยากิเลสเหล่านี้ 1. อิจฉาริษยา 2. รักสวยรักงาม 3. ความหลงตอบสั้นก็สติตอบยาวก็อิจฉาริษยาก็เจริญมุทิตาจิตเมตตากรุณามุทิตาจิตเขาได้ดีก็ดีใจด้วยเขาพัฒนาก้าวหน้าในชีวิตก็ดีใจด้วยเขาทำบุญก็ดีใจด้วยยินดีกับเขาแทนที่จะยินร้ายกับเขาเราก็ยินดีกับเขารักสวยรักงามก็อสุภะอสุภังเพ่งในจุดที่ไม่สวยไม่งามในเรื่องนั้นในสิ่งนั้นเช่นร่างกายก็ดูที่ความเสื่อมของร่างกายสิ่งที่คนเรากลัวที่สุดก็เพื่อนมาบอกว่าโอ้วันนี้ดูหน้าเธอหน้าแก่เกลียดมากไม่ชอบเลยใช่ไหมก็พิจารณาจนชินจนรู้หน้าแก่ก็เป็นความจริงหน้าแก่ก็แก่ตามอายุหน้าโทรมหน้าซีดหน้าเสื่อมมันก็เป็นธรรมดาของร่างกายอันนั้นแค่หน้าก็ดูอย่างอื่นก็ได้ความไม่สวยงามของร่างกายมันเหม็นมันมีของสกปรกออกมาตลอดเวลาไม่ซักผ้าก็เหม็นไม่ล้างตัวไม่ทำความสะอาดตัวไม่อาบน้ำก็เหม็นพิจารณาไปเรื่อยๆจะได้เห็นความจริงจะได้ความรู้สึกของเราจะได้สมดุลถ้าสิ่งภายนอกก็คนติดเพชรพลอยหลวงปู่ชาก็บอกหินไม่เห็นเป็นอะไรหินเพชรมีราคาแพงๆก็ยังเป็นหินอยู่ออกจากดินยังเป็นธาตุดินเป็นหินคนที่มองปกติด้วยสติปัญญาก็มันก็แค่ธาตุดินรู้ทางโลกนิยมว่ามีราคาเพราะมันสวยงามหายากแต่ว่าโดยสภาวะมันก็หินเป็นธาตุดินความหลงก็สติปัญญาอีกก็ฟังธรรมเยอะๆฟังธรรมบ่อยๆจะได้เกิดความรู้ความเข้าใจแล้วก็พิจารณาตามพยายามจำในธรรมที่เราได้ฟังได้ยินแล้วก็ฝึกสติให้รู้ทันอย่างน้อยสติรู้ธรรมะที่เราได้ยินก็เอามาใช้มาประยุกต์มาใช้ในชีวิตประจำวัน ท่านสอนให้เราละบาปโอเคเราจะละบาปบำเพ็ญกุศลโอเคเราจะบำเพ็ญกุศลเอาแค่นี้ก็บรรลุทำได้แล้วแต่หลงก็หลงตามความคิดที่เป็นกิเลสได้จากคนอื่นบ้างจากตรงนี้บ้างตรงนั้นบ้างผุกขึ้นมาในใจไม่ได้ตั้งสติก็เชื่อไปตามโลภโกรธหลงเวียนหัวไม่เอาฝึกสติแล้วก็ฟังธรรมต่อไปก็และจะใช้ธรรมะข้อนี้นั้นนำมาปฏิบัติจริงได้อย่างไรก็เหมือนที่ว่าก็ปฏิบัติภาวนาฟังธรรมบ่อยๆนั่งสมาธิบ่อยๆฝึกสติในชีวิตประจำวันสติอยู่กับศีลแล้วก็รู้จักตัวเองความทุกข์เกิดจากความคิดผิดที่เป็นบาปอกุศลอันนี้เราต้องละทุกครั้งกุศลเราต้องบำเพ็ญให้มีขึ้นรักษาไว้แล้วก็มีขึ้นมากขึ้นพัฒนาขึ้นรักสวยรักงามเราก็พยายามเพ่งทุกวันดูจุดมองภาพกว้างว่าความสวยงามในสิ่งนั้นมีแต่ว่าสิ่งที่ไม่สวยไม่งามก็มีเหมือนกันพยายามเห็นลึกซึ้งใช้สติปัญญาพิจารณาเห็นความจริงเกี่ยวกับร่างกายตัวเองร่างกายคนอื่นสิ่งของต่างๆความหลงก็อันนี้อยู่ที่สติสัมปชัญญะโดยตรงถามตัวเองเสมอว่าเรากำลังทำอะไรอยู่แล้วก็ตอบตัวเองด้วยว่าเรากำลังนั่งสมาธิกำลังขับรถกำลังทำอาหารจะได้ไม่หลงลืมแล้วก็ฟังธรรมบ่อยๆJust a question about how to deal with jealousy and envy, attachment to beauty and the desire for beautiful things, and then just general delusion. So the short answer is just mindfulness practice will deal with all these three. But mindfulness, once you establish, you start to see the suffering of any unwholesome state, and then you want to start to abandon it. But listening to Dhamma helps a lot. Keep reminding yourself of Dhamma, bringing up the Dhamma you've heard, reminding yourself, and then try to apply it. Establish mindfulness in daily life. Know your mind. Is it in a wholesome, skillful state or not? When you're jealous, is this skillful or not? Obviously, these Dhammas have their opposites. So if you're jealous or envious, will bring up more empathy and sympathetic joy, metta, mudita. Might just think about karma, like if you have a lot of jealousy, someone else is successful or got something that you would like but you haven't got, or you're not happy that they've got it. Just remember, if you're giving in to your envy, your jealousy, and your ill will towards them, one day maybe you'll get that thing that you want that you haven't got, just like them, you'll get it, and then you'll have lots of jealous people after you, because you've created the karma for that. So if you don't like people being jealous of you, being rival with you, criticizing you, backstabbing you, and all the things that come with jealousy, well, don't do it yourself. Simple. Rak soi, rak ngam. Well, this is a super. We tend to attach to the beauty, as I've been talking, particularly in our body. We like to keep it clean, looking good, and we identify with it. Or remind yourself of the unattractive parts. See the suffering of always looking for the attraction in things and the beauty in things unmindfully. We always get caught up into that, and then we get disappointed when things change. On and on we can go about this, but basically the super practices, contemplating the unattractiveness of the body and of form, even external forms, internal form, and the impermanence of whatever it is that you're attracted to and caught up in. Then the other basic one about delusion. Well, mindfulness and clear comprehension helps you to break through delusions. So you establish mindfulness, establish clear comprehension, direct it to your own body, your own feelings, your mind, state of mind. You start to see where defilements arise, where the desire, the love, the attraction for pleasant, beautiful things is coming, and you see the suffering of it, how it stirs up the mind, how it creates attachment. You keep seeing that, then you want to start letting go of it. You get tired of all the suffering it causes you. And it breaks through delusions. When you establish mindfulness and you reflect on the truth, delusion gets broken over and over again. Gram Namaskar หลวงพ่อค่ะขอความกรุณาหลวงพ่ออธิบายขั้นตอนการกำหนดเมตตาภาวนาในเชิงปฏิบัติ The question about metta. I did talk about this earlier in English, just mentioned briefly in Thai. ก็วิธีแผ่เมตตามีหลายแบบหนึ่งก็ท่องบทตามที่เราสวดก็ขอให้ข้าพเจ้าจงมีความสุขไม่มีความทุกข์พ้นจากความทุกข์ท่องไปฝึกสติในการท่องแล้วเพ่งที่อาจจะเพ่งที่จุดใดจุดหนึ่งเช่นหน้าอกแล้วก็สร้างความรู้สึกเย็นสบายเหมือนเรามีความอบอุ่นความรักให้ตัวเองจะเป็นความรู้สึกเหมือนเราอุ้มลูกที่เกิดใหม่ๆก็เป็นความรักที่ธรรมชาติที่ไม่เรียกร้องอะไรตอบสนองเป็นความรักที่ไม่มีประมาณไม่มีข้อจำกัดแค่เป็นความรู้สึกรักหวังดีสร้างความรู้สึกอันนี้จนจับได้เพ่งได้อยู่กับสติกับความรู้สึกอันนี้แล้วก็ท่องพร้อมกันบางคนก็เพ่งแสงสว่างพร้อมกันบางคนก็หายใจเข้าหายใจออกพร้อมกันก็ได้หรือแค่จับความรู้สึกที่หน้าอกแล้วก็จับไว้จนกระทั่งจำได้รู้ความรู้สึกอันนี้จิตเป็นหนึ่งในความรู้สึกอันนี้แล้วก็อาจจะแผ่ไปทั่วร่างกายให้รู้สึกสบายเจ็บตรงไหนก็ส่งความรู้สึกที่สบายไปถึงจุดนั้นพอเมตตาคลายเป็นสมาธิมีปิติมีสุขเกิดขึ้นแล้วต่อไปก็แผ่ไปถึงคนอื่นเช่นมารดาบิดาสามีภรรยาลูกพี่น้องเพื่อนสนิทต่อไปก็แผ่ไปถึงคนที่เรารู้สึกกลางๆเช่นคนข้างบ้านหรือคนที่เราไปทำงานด้วยแต่ไม่สนิทสุดท้ายก็แผ่สรรพสัตว์ทั้งหลายทุกภพทุกภูมิทั่วไปไม่เลือกไม่จำกัดเป็นอัปปมัญญาเหมือนพระพุทธเจ้าเลยถ้ามีใครที่เรายังติดใจกับมีความปองร้ายความพยาบาทก็คนนั้นเราก็พยายามเปลี่ยนแนวคิดด้วยแผ่เมตตาขึ้นมาเพ่งที่ความรู้สึกที่ดีสร้างความรู้สึกที่ดีให้อภัยเขาแล้วก็มองเขาเหมือนเราเขาอยากจะมีความสุขเหมือนเราความโกรธพยาบาทในใจก็เป็นความทุกข์เราพยายามละตรงนี้จนกระทั่งเราทำได้คล่องฝึกอย่างนี้ทุกวันถ้าเรามุ่งนิพพานเราก็ต้องทำให้ได้ก็เลยพระพุทธเจ้าบอกถ้ายังโกรธใครไปนิพพานไม่ได้แน่นอนเพราะฉะนั้นอย่าเลิกถ้าเรายังโกรธก็อย่าเลิกปฏิบัติภาวนาจนเลิกจนแผ่เมตตาได้เมตตาไม่ออกก็ไปภาวนาต่อนั่งสมาธิเดินจงกรมพิจารณาจนแผ่ให้ได้พระมักจะปฏิบัติอย่างนี้ถ้ายังติดความโกรธไม่ต้องไม่นอนไปเดินจงกรมจนละได้นั่งสมาธิจนละให้มันได้คนเรามักจะทำนิดๆหน่อยๆแล้วก็มันยากเลยก็ไปนอนอีกวันหนึ่งลุกขึ้นเอาก็ยังโกรธอีกเจอเขาก็ยังโกรธอีกไม่จบเผลอก็อาจจะเพิ่มขึ้นก็ได้เลยคนอยู่ด้วยความไม่ประมาทก็พยายามแก้ไขความโกรธสม่ำเสมอพูดดีคิดดีทำดีไม่ได้ศัตรูเราก็พยายามทำดีกับเขาอดทนต่อเขา ร้อมกันก็ได้ในเริ่มแรกขอให้ข้าพเจ้าจงมีความสุขขอให้ข้าพเจ้าจงมีความสุขหรือถ้าแผ่ไปสรรพสัตว์ก็สรรพสัตว์ทั้งหลายขอให้มีความสุขไม่มีความทุกข์จะแต่งคำพูดตามบทสวดก็ได้หรือแต่งตามที่เราชอบก็ได้แต่ว่าท่องไปเรื่อยๆก็เลยมีทั้งคำพูดในใจแล้วก็มีความรู้สึกพร้อมกันเพ่งอยู่ที่หน้าอกนี่ก็ท่องไปนี่ก็เพ่งที่หน้าอกแต่ว่าเพ่งที่หน้าอกแล้วก็เพ่งด้วยความรู้สึกผ่อนคลายสบายอบอุ่นไม่ใช่เครียดถ้ามีความรู้สึกเครียดเราก็ต้องค่อยๆแผ่จนความรู้สึกเครียดค่อยๆหมดไปจบไปก็เลยต้องมีความเพียรตรงนี้บางทีก็หลายวันหลายครั้งกว่าจะคล่องกว่าจะทำได้นะไม่ใช่อาจจะครั้งเดียวไม่พอเราก็ต้องทำต่อเนื่องทำบ่อยๆก็ธรรมดาบางที่ชนะบางที่แพ้ก็ทำไปเรื่อยๆจนคล่องฝึกI might leave translation of that because we talked quite a lot about it earlier. Venerable Sir, I have a habit of choosing good friends, friends who live by Dhamma and uphold morality. In the process, I do not associate with many friends too closely, but I do wish all of them well. In the back of my mind, I feel associating with people with poor morality leads to unwanted trouble. Am I doing the right thing? It sounds correct. The Buddha encouraged us to associate with good people, wise friends, good friends, Kalyano Mitta. But we also live in a world with many different people, and sometimes our karma brings us together with many kinds of people, at work, even in the family, or our circle of associates, friends, social connections. They're not always people who understand about morality or Buddhist practice or keeping precepts. Everyone has slightly different principles and standards that guide them. So you might contemplate this, and if you know someone is not so honest, or they're always drinking, or they're very aggressive and violent or something, you be careful and choose your times and how much you associate with them. And that's your choice, and that's how we have to live, isn't it? We do make choices all the time. You can still have kindness and compassion for people who have a different level of morality, but you don't necessarily choose to do things together with them all the time. If you have the choice, you might separate. When you do it as a meditation though, metta, obviously you're getting to the point where it's unconditional goodwill for everyone. So that's whatever their level of morality, whoever they are, their gender, their age, their race, even animals, even beings in other realms. You're getting to the point where you're not choosing, just a goodwill to all beings. So that can underlie your behavior, but the practical reality of daily life is sometimes people they have a different standard of morality, so you don't associate with them very much, and that's fair enough. You still have goodwill, but you know they will bring you trouble. That's why you come on a retreat here. We don't do a retreat in the middle of Chadstone shopping centre, because it'd be very difficult. Some people would think, oh, good idea, but some people probably wouldn't think it's a good idea. You choose, make choices in your life. You have your house, and you choose your friends who comes, where you go. And we can do that. But where we can't choose, sometimes you're working with someone, or just know them and be aware if someone is not going to have the same level of morality as you, but you still meet them every day. Well, you can be kind to them, but just be a little bit careful. How much you trust them. If they're an untrustworthy person, we'll know that, so you're careful. ว่าปลูกพันธุ์มานานแล้วเกิดมาอยู่ด้วยกันรักบ้างชังบ้างแต่อยู่ด้วยกันชินก็เลยมีเหมือนมีไซปลูกระหว่างใจเรากับใจเขาก็เลยเขาดึงไซนี้นิดหน่อยก็สะเทือนแล้วคนอื่นไม่มีอันนี้เราก็รู้สึกเฉยๆห่างไกลแต่คนใกล้ชิดครอบครัวญาติพี่น้องพูดอะไรนิดหน่อยมันก็เข้าใช่ไหมด่าเราเจ็บชมเราก็สบายให้เราก็สุขแยกกับเราทำลายเราก็ทุกข์มากเพราะสร้างกรรมร่วมกันกรรมทายาทเราก็เป็นกรรมเป็นญาติในกรรมผูกพันมานานแล้วบางทีหลายภพหลายชาติด้วยก็เลยละยากกว่าต้องพิจารณาบ่อยๆพยายามตัดอกุศลด้วยเจริญสติปัญญาในความสัมพันธ์กับเขาก็ส่วนที่ดีที่เป็นกุศลเราก็ทำได้รักษาได้ส่วนที่เป็นอกุศลความหลงบางทีก็ยึดมากเกินไปหลงมากเกินไปตามเขาถ้าบางทีเขาไม่ประพฤติอยู่ในศีลเราก็ต้องพยายามตั้งหลักว่าเราจะอยู่ในศีลถ้าเขาไม่อยู่ในศีลความเป็นสิทธิ์ของเขาแต่เราไม่ตามเขาในเรื่องนั้นคือส่วนที่เป็นธรรมเป็นกุศลเราก็รักษาไว้ส่วนที่เป็นอกุศลเราก็ต้องพยายามละไปจากใจของเราสุดท้ายเราก็รู้ทุกอย่างก็อนิจจังรักเขาเท่าไหร่สุดท้ายก็ต้องตายจากกันไปแน่นอนก็พิจารณาทุกวันคนที่เรารักสิ่งที่เรารักเราก็ต้องแยกด้วยความตายจะได้ไม่ประมาทไม่หลงช่วยเข้าที่ช่วยได้บางคนเราช่วยได้บางคนอาจจะช่วยไม่ได้มากก็ไม่เป็นไรอุเบกขาช่วยเท่าที่ช่วยได้Venerable Sir, while keeping the 8 precepts, I attempt not to make any mental judgment of people whom I see. For example, if I see a person, a thought comes to my mind, he or she seems a kind person or a tough person. I attempt to see all people who pass by as skeletons, so as mental impressions will occur. So no mental impression will occur.How best can I avoid making good or bad impressions in my mind? Is there a strategy that can help me? Well, if you're truly mindful and contemplating bones, ati, and seeing your own bones, and then you see the bones in others, and then you're really seeing that, then it will bring you great equanimity, upekkha. And so this will help with how you deal with others.But until that point, you practice the Brahma Viharas, so practice metta as a foundation for all people, good, bad, friendly, unfriendly, medium, short, small, near and far, seen, unseen, born, those to be born, as we chant. So that is where you're leveling the judging mind, you're seeing the common humanity or common desire for happiness,for nibbana in all of us. But then panya and upekkha help you to deal with the differences between people. And some people, like you say, are very kind, some are more fierce, unfriendly. You use panya to help understand, be aware of the differences and to practice accordingly. If you really see all people as skeletons, at that time, then you don't choose, do you? Like you don't choose beautiful skeleton, ugly skeleton, friendly skeleton, tough skeleton, fierce skeleton. It's not like that, is it? Your mind is so peaceful, you're just focused on the bones. And like those arahants in the time of the Buddha or in the modern age, there are monks I know who practice like this, and they're just seeing people as skeletons, so they're not falling in love with them, they're not falling out of love with them, they're just skeletons. People have a skeleton, it's like that, made up of 4 elements, it's impermanent, it's not self. So the mind goes beyond a lot of the normal perceptions we have. becomes very peaceful and just seeing everything as Dhamma. Ajahn Chah said, when the mind of the Arahant, you're just seeing everything as Dhamma. So he said, everything is teaching you. So you still know what people are like, their habits, what they do, good and bad, but you're just seeing it as Dhamma. So he says, everything is teaching you. When the mind of an Arahant is like that. He went to England and he came back, and one of the Thai monks said, what's it like in England? You know, what did you see? He said, everything is just Dhamma. You see people, obviously the people in England behave different from Thailand in some respects. You know, their language is different, their customs are different. He said, but it's all just Dhamma. You're just seeing it as Dhamma without a sense of personal attachment and preferences. The weather is different, the buildings are different. He could see the differences, but it's just Dhamma. The way people behave, you know, you can see cause and effect. Karma affects people in England as it does in Australia or Thailand. Doesn't change. The mind of the Arahant is free from bias, free from attachment. So it's just free to see everything as Dhamma, seeing it as truth, as a teaching. So they can see if someone is behaving in a kind way, they'll recognize that. Oh, this is kind, and probably they'll praise it. You know, the Buddha praised people who are kind. If someone's acting in a more selfish way, they'll feel compassion because they know that's causing that person suffering. But it's all Dhamma. There's no suffering with it. Just seeing everything as Dhamma. Yeah, Ajahn, all day my mind is like it is a cloud in regards to the thoughts that I have. I can spend a large part of the day not having any thoughts, or when I have thoughts, it is always an incomplete one, or it's random words. I can always feel like there is a word or thought wanting to come up in my mind, but I can not have it or understand it. Cannot hear it or understand it. This has affected the way I talk and respond to people. It can be different to word. It can be difficult to word a question sometimes, and I am quite often slow to respond to a question and answering a question. Any advice you could give me on this matter would be much appreciated. Probably practice of sati sampajanya, and when we begin meditation practice, we're not fully experienced and we're putting a lot of effort in. Very common what you're describing, to see thoughts coming and then see spaces, and then sometimes our intention is so intense, we're putting all our effort into being mindful of the body, the posture, watching the mind. Then communication with others, sometimes you don't have questions and you don't have thoughts, and people ask you something but you don't really want to respond because you don't have a lot in your mind, you're just focusing on your practice. This is why we practice in noble silence, even though nobody's keeping it. We practice noble silence to give those ones who are practicing like this a chance just to get into their meditation practice. And you don't have to bother them, you don't have to keep asking them what are they doing, where they're going, you just let them practice. Because we're in a situation like this, you can do it. Where it's harder is if you go home or go to work, you walk into work doing your mindfulness practice and your boss says, come here, and you've got a meeting, and then they want an opinion, and it's like, can't speak if you're still doing your mindfulness practice in a certain way. So you have to be flexible and adaptable to time and place, and that's part of mindfulness and clear comprehension. You understand where you are, what you're doing, what's the purpose of what you're doing, and as you practice more you get used to knowing when you should speak, What are the right words to choose? What's the right thing to say in a certain situation? Or when to be quiet, when it's okay to be quiet. But people often have this problem, you get a little bit confused or slow at first because you're just inexperienced and you're turning your attention inwards, watching your own khandhas. Then you have to interact with someone else, and it's like, sometimes it's a bit awkward at first, clumsy. Many monks practicing, in the early years, they just don't talk very much at all. And sometimes they lose friends and get criticized. Like Ajahn Mahabua is a great enlightened arahant. By the time he died, he's known throughout Thailand, millions of people, millions of disciples. But when he was a young monk, for long periods he didn't talk to anyone. And other monks would think, well, he's a bit grumpy, why doesn't he talk? He's just focusing on his own meditation, his own practice. And he didn't do anything to disturb anyone or do anything bad, it's just he didn't talk very much. Sometimes it's like that, you just get into your practice, you're not talking much. It's hard to form thoughts and communicate with others sometimes. So someone who's practiced, often they understand that. They understand, so they don't make a problem out of it. But someone who's new or not practicing Dhamma, they won't understand. So they say, oh, why is that person slow to answer a question, or why aren't they talking? So it's just one of those things, especially in the beginning of meditation. The main thing is establish your mind in metta. So if you're not speaking, or you're slow to answer, or having issues with this, at least have a goodwill to others. You can always smile. In monasteries it's like that. When a monk is getting into his practice, becomes really peaceful, he's got piti and sukha. Someone else who's meditating will notice that, piti and sukha, and they won't doubt if that monk is not speaking very much. They know, he's happy. He's peaceful inside. They'll leave him alone. But people who haven't practiced, they don't understand this point. So there's what's going on there. But if you, at least sometimes you just smile, or show that you still mean well to others, then the verbalization is not so important. Obviously, if you do speak, well, choose your words and try and speak that which is true and helpful. Ooh, a lot of questions. Maybe I'll just answer one more and we'll finish tonight, and we can finish the others tomorrow. There is a question regarding right livelihood this afternoon. As a Buddhist, should we choose a company who we want to work with? For example, tobacco company that might damage one's health, or gambling company, such as sports bet or crown casino. Are these against right livelihood? Well, if you're in a lucky position to choose, then the best is to choose a company you're happy with, where you feel it's promoting skillful qualities in society and they earn their money in a skillful way, not harming others, not promoting unwholesome activities, not damaging health. So if you're lucky enough to choose, yes, you can. Some people are not. Some people need work and they have to just take what they can get. And Buddhists are just the same. Buddhists are often poor anyway. So Buddhists are often poor. Buddhists are working in the Crown Casino. It's full of Buddhists. They come here all the time. So what do I say? Do I say, oh, wrong livelihood, you should leave? I don't say that, because they need to earn their money. So you say, well, you're in that job, maybe there's aspects of the company as a whole that you don't agree with or not so wholesome, but just make sure you do your job well, be honest, don't be lazy, don't deceive people, just try to do your job well, be fair to others and kind to others. Earn your money in that way, and you might still call it right livelihood because that's what you're focusing on. And maybe one day when you're in a position, you might move to another company. If you have the choice, the chance, maybe you can move. Life is not always easy, and you can't just choose all the time. Sometimes our life situation, we have family responsibilities, we need money and so on. It's difficult, but you make the best of your situation and maybe have a long-term goal to work in a way that you feel very comfortable with and don't have to compromise with your principles. And once you're really fed up of all that, you just come and become a monk or a nun, then it's easy. And we don't promote anything bad, we just encourage right livelihood, but unfortunately very poor, so you won't make any money. There's a few more, but I'll leave them for tomorrow because I think it's quite late.